In the last 4 years, I've worked with over 150 clothing brands, including some of the biggest brands in the space like Flower, Pluto Golf, St. Pete, all going from the very beginning of zero to all the way to 100K a month plus in gross revenue. Without wasted ad spend, making random content, and just freestyling the whole marketing. And the crazy part was, 5 years ago, I was doing this for completely free, running ads for clothing brands for completely free. And since then, I've completely changed my approach. Now brands pay me thousands of dollars to want to learn the same systems that we use to scale all our brands up. And 3 things come with this. Number 1 is to build a brand with a cult-like following and community. Second is to scale insanely profitably with paid ads. And third, which is most importantly, scale the overall brand's gross revenue month after month. Now in this video today, I broke down the entire process step by step on how we scale brands all the way from 0 to 50K a month, so you can implement this for your own brand after watching this video. I pull back the curtains, I show you everything. I hope you guys get some value out of this, and with that being said, let's get straight into it. The first component that you really need to focus on is your brand foundation. No ads, no content, literally no email and SMS or website stuff is going to scale your brand to 50, 100K a month plus if you have a ship brand. And I'm not going to specifically talk about the product because that is subjective, right? You know, the reason why Balenciaga is able to sell ripped, homeless looking clothes is not because they've done some really good ad technique. No, it's because of the brand, right? So the first component of scaling the brand 50K a month is to build proper brand foundation. And lesson number 1 is that you need to sell and niche down on your ideal customer profile. And that is the very first thing that you need to do, right? Because so many people, when they get into this industry, they sell to everybody. And I always say this, if you sell to everybody, you sell to nobody, right? The number 1 thing to create leverage between your competitors is by niching down so you can become a specialist, not a generalist. If I was to give you an example, let's just say I had a gym brand that I wanted to start up, right? I sold amazing compression shirts that I've never personally seen in the market before, right? And let's just say my ideal customer profile is people who like going to the gym. The thing is, why would anybody buy from my gym brand if there's brands like Alo, Lululemon, you know, Gymshark? You know, obviously I can say that my compression shirt is XYZ quality, it's sweat resistant, never seen technology before, but you gotta realize that the customers that see your brand for the first time, when you don't have any trust or when you don't have any perceived value within your brand, they're not going to give a fuck. Right? And it's not about, hey, my product is this, hey, my product, no. You need to be in the position where people, when they see your product, they can give a fuck about your brand first. It's almost like you need to sell your brand first before you can talk about your product features, right? And this is the same ideology I give my clients. It's like, let's just say you were shopping in a mall, right? You were trying to look for some clothes, and I came up to you. I'm like, oh my God, buy my compression shirt. It's this. Like, you're going to say go away because you don't care. There's no trust, you don't know who I am, and you aren't born into my brand's ecosystem because it's so selfish for you to think that the customers can think the same way that you do, right? You don't. You understand, of course you understand, because you are the owner and you're the creator of the product, right? So this got me thinking, right? If you're shopping in the mall, how do you decide to buy clothes? Obviously, number 1, attention in terms of the store itself. It needs to grab, right? You need to feel like it's related or whatever it is. You see this amazing store, you go in, it smells nice, the customer service is nice, you like the overall aesthetic, and third, you also see the product, right, that you like, right? That's the transitional funnel in store sale, right? And when it comes to the e-commerce online, we cannot just sell clothes by just having an ICP of, hey, I sell to people who go to the gym, because it creates no leverage. The best way to create leverage is to be very, very specific in terms of who we sell to. For example, instead of my ICP being people who like going to the gym, right? I'm just thinking out of my head specifically, is I can be like, I am going to sell clothes to 18-year-olds who feel very insecure about the body, who wants to become pro bodybuilders and who are Asian. Now, again, this might be a very extreme example. Now I've taken a very, very specific type of group in that niche that would actually choose my brand, because those people that feel insecure about the body, that are Asian, who wants to go pro bodybuilding, they can actually relate to me, right? They get brands like Gymshark, Alo can't compete with me because I've spoken to that individual that can relate to them. Because the reason why we want to niche down on ICPs, every single content, every single marketing angle, formats, the copy of your brand, the tonality of your brand goes back to ICP, right? Because it's not a matter of we just copy Gymshark's content, because how does that create any leverage? We don't, right? Because once people feel like this brand is special for them, now you have their attention and almost permission for them to actually listen to your actual product as well. But before actually nicing down on your ICP, nothing quite frankly matters. The second thing that we need to do in terms of brand foundation is making sure that your product, in terms of its value that you have, actually equates to your ICP. And I want to give you an analogy, right? I can have the best amazing tacos in the world, right? Amazing Michelin star. But if you don't like tacos, no matter how good my taco restaurant is, it's not going to work, because the value that I have doesn't equate to you, which is my ICP, right? But let's just change that for a bit, okay? And we have that you really fucking like tacos. It's like you're obsessed with it. You eat it every day. And I sell mediocre tacos. Just by having that position change, and my value might not be as valuable to the market, but you're still more likely to buy from my taco stand because you really like tacos. That's the same thing. So whatever you niche down on your ICP, your product needs to be very valuable to them, right? So let's actually think about this with the gym example that I've given you guys, right? So my gym example in terms of the type of customer that I'm trying to attract is people who feel very insecure, who is young, who is Asian, right? When they feel insecure, what do they find, right? They find that a lot of the compression shirts, when they're usually, I'm selling to people that aren't the fittest, you know, because that's smart, but who has the ambition to become. So I sell, you know, compression shirts that no matter what body shape you're, it fits very nicely, right? So you can feel confident. That's the value that equates to it. If I had that product and marketed the compression shirt to be water resistant, thermal technology to my ICP, they don't care, because they don't care if it's water resistant. They don't care if it lasts 2 months, 3 months. They don't care about that. The only thing that they care about is their insecurity about their body, which again, it can be the same. Obviously, my compression shirt can be water resistant, whatever it is, but you using that angle, it doesn't matter, because to them, that's not valuable for them. So the job with your clothes in whatever niche you are, after you've niched down on your ICP, it is so important that the value that you represent, which is what I like to call angles and verticals, right, actually match on what your ideal customer profile even needs, right? Because again, the same analogy of the taco stand. So that's super, super important. The third and last thing I like to talk about when it comes to brand foundation is the actual packaging, right? When you go into a store, the trust is built because you can physically feel and try out the product. But when you're building an e-commerce clothing brand, the thing that you have to realize is nobody can feel, wear your product. Everything is bought through two things. Number one, trust. Obviously, no one's going to pay $100 to a brand that looks scammy or doesn't feel related to them. And the second thing is perception, right? Everything in terms of the consumer psychology is bought through the perceived value of the brand, which is super, super important. Nobody buys something if the perceived value of what the customers are sacrificing is more than what they're sacrificing. Okay, let me give you guys an example. If you see an ad of my compression shirt and it's just a shitty mock-up, bad lighting, for them, before they even click on it, they might be interested in compression shirt, but in their head, within 2 to 3 seconds, they've already decided what the product price might be. When you see an ad from like Balenciaga or Louis Vuitton, you see a bag from them, in your mind, it's already tied to expensive because of the perceived value of the brand it has. But you don't have that brand recognition, which is also a good thing and a bad thing because it is controlled through the actual content perception. So for example, when I'm running a shitty creative, again, I'll go more into what the actual content actually looks like, right? Then again, in their mind, it's this compression shirt is probably going to be the average $50. But then you go onto the website, it's $180 just because of the special technology or whatever it is. You've lost the interest. They're not going to buy. Wherever, if we flip that, right, you really sell on the quality, you sell on the features, XYZ, right? In their mind, wow, this must be expensive. It's $200, but then it's actually $150. They're more likely to buy that way. Again, it's the same product, but it's the packaging around the product. And so many people in this brand owner get this wrong, but also don't care about it because they don't think it's important. But probably one of the most important aspects is how your product is actually meant to be perceived. Packaging is done in a lot of ways in terms of controlling the perceived value, right? Obviously the content, who your brand is associated with. If I had a gym brand and I get, a basketball brand, I have like LeBron James, like very simple logically, the perceived value of the brand goes up because it's an influential figure in that niche, right? So we have the actual packaging, so the content of the brand, right? In terms of the quality, in terms of representing the right angles. The second thing is obviously your ICP, who is actually associated with the brand itself. The third thing, which I think is honestly one of the most underrated ways, is environments, right? If you look at brands like Aloe, if you look at brands like Lululemon, I know I keep using gym examples, I don't know why, I was just talking to a client that had a gym brand before this, but if I had a brand like, if you see the brands like Aloe, Lululemon, all these type of stuff, the reason why they add luxury hotels, the reason why they add yachts is because when you see that and it's correlated with the brand, in the consumer's head, it's already perception through wealth, right? And that's the perceived value that they want you to have, right? So when it comes to brand foundation, again, very simply, right? The first things first is you need to niche down to ICP, right? You want to become a specialist, not a generalist. I want you to write this down, okay? The second thing is your product actually needs to be valuable to your ICP. Okay, you can have the same product. I'm not telling you you need to add some cool fucking wicked features. No, you need to control the angles on how you represent and almost the messaging of how you represent the actual product to the ICP, okay? The third thing is you really need to control the packaging because nobody's going to care if your product is really, really fucking good, but it's presented in a shit way because everything is bought through perception, right? And the consumer and the customers are really selfish. Nobody understands what you have except for you, right? You need to treat it that way and you think of it that way whenever you make content, whenever you make angles, whenever you design your products, right? They will judge for themselves. We don't need to tell them that our product is good. They would judge them by who is associated with us, how the product is presented through the content quality, right? And the environments that are associated with your brand, okay? So that's number one, because without this, nothing will go. The second thing that we need to focus on to scaling the brand from 0 to 50K a month is content. Content is like oil, right? You can put oil in a broken down Toyota or you can put oil in a Lamborghini, right? But the most fundamental component that you guys need to understand is without oil, nothing operates, right? And that is where content plays a huge part. But most people get content wrong. They do a couple of things, right? I've noticed this being in this industry for a very, very long time, okay? First things first is, for whatever reason, they like to copy of other brands and just copy that and just repeat it. Could work when it comes to getting engagement and view, could work, right? But my question to you is, if I had a gym brand and I copied everything Gymshark does, how does that create any leverage between me and my competitors and what makes me unique, right? It doesn't, right? The second thing is a lot of the people think if they just post random content every single day, right, without any structure, when it comes to organic or even ads, without actually having a proper system, they think one of them hit. That's what I like to call shooting a bow and arrow in the dark. The thing that I need you to understand with content, one scaling 50K a month, is you need to split the content pipeline and diversification between your organic marketing content and your ad content. I have a full video on the organic and ad content, how to build winning creative, so I'm not gonna go too much in depth in that, but you need to separate it because the whole point of organic and the whole point of ad content are two different things when it comes to actually scaling a brand in 50K a month. The main thing with organic is to build an actual community, to build trust with the audiences, and number three, to increase perceived value. So when people come from your ad and they do their due diligence through their website, through their profile, through their Instagram, through their TikTok, you can build touch point throughout the buyer's journey every single step of the way. That is the whole point of organic. And from that, obviously through your content, you're going to nurture them, which will get the organic sales, right? But secondly, ad content isn't the job to build trust. Ad creative direction isn't the job to sort of, go through founder-led content and understand who you are as a brand. That's not the point of the ads. The ads content is a couple of things. Number one is to convert, right? Convert in terms of triggering a specific emotional reaction from the ICP, right? So adding angles, right? Second is to get attention from the ads to have a good CTR in terms of obviously the formats, the verticals that are working, right? And third is it's kind of like a repetitive machine, right? With organic, if you post a reel after a month, it doesn't appear, whereas ads, it's consistently showing to people who are most likely to buy your product, right? That's the difference. And the number one thing that I realized when brands are trying to even scale the first 10K, they think building an ad content pipeline is kind of like the same thing as the organic and ad, which is completely different. And you need to focus on building a funnel, because if you're right now watching this video and you don't have a funnel in place when it comes to organic marketing and you're just posting whatever you really want on Instagram and you're just chasing followers and views, right? Then you're going to be on a hamster wheel forever and not go anywhere, right? You need to be so intentional with the type of content you post, from the top, middle, bottom, conversion content, from VSL content or UGC content, every single step of the way. Because again, what did I say before? Content is like oil. You need to have the right structure and vehicle to make sure the oil is used the right way to get to where you want to go, right? So how do I do this, Daniel? What do I need to do to scale when it comes to organic? So the main thing I would say when it comes to organic content is you need to have different deliverables to making sure that when someone enters your brand ecosystem, they can feel trusted. That's number one. The second thing that you need to do is making sure that the product and the content quality and the type of overall content that you have matches the perceived value of the product that you sell, right? That's number two. Third is you need content that educates whoever enters your brand ecosystem what makes you unique and who you are as a brand, right? Fourth is you need content that actually specifically focus on your actual utility and the unique selling point and the value proposition of your product, right? That all needs to be displayed on the organic. On the ad point of view, the only thing that you need, I say only thing, but it gets a bit complicated. This is where I want to tell you a story. It's like we had a client, Daniel Harvey, who scaled from 1K a month all the way to 20K a month in 1 month, right? 80% of the revenue came from ads, but 80% of our time came through making content on the ads, and 20% through media buying and testing structure. What does that say? Content is everything when it comes to ads, right? Content with organic is different to content with ads, right? The main thing, I'm gonna make this very simple, right? For you guys watching this, if you made it this far as well, right? The only thing that I want you to focus on is two things: angles and formats. So angles in terms of how am I going to resonate with my ideal customer profile to trigger a specific emotional reaction. Think about that when you make a content, right? The second thing is how can I package that angle in a format so I can get attention, because triggering an emotional reaction or emotional, something in the curiosity, happiness, sadness, or whatever is through an ad, and getting attention is two different things, right? Because I can get attention by doing some fucking bullshit, right? Which is obviously not gonna get sales, right? But what's actually gonna get you to convert is making sure that the type of content that we have on the ads, it can actually trigger a specific emotion. But that alone isn't gonna get them to stop, right? So we have a click, stop, scroll, right? So when it comes to getting attention, that comes from formats that are working in your industry. So again, formats and angles are two different things, and we need to combine those to actually test, right? But so many people get the component wrong of actually content. So that's content, and I'm very strict, obviously with all the brands that we work with, in building a content pipeline, because the number one thing that we don't want to do when it comes to organic, ads, or whatever it is, just make random content that suits us. No, there needs to be structure in terms of what content goes out this week for organic. Am I moving the needle forward within my customer buyer's journey with the ads? Am I targeting and testing the right angles? Obviously, to know what you're testing, we need to read the KPIs or whatever, which is the stuff that I'm going to talk about next. But the main gist of content and why I'm emphasizing the split between organic content and ad content is because you need to build different pipelines and structure in order to scale. The third and probably the most important thing is I'm going to go deep into traffic source. Like I said, oil is the content, the vehicle is the traffic source, so the acquisition, okay? There's two sides to building a seven-figure brand, okay? Let alone scaling to 10, 20, 30, 50K a month. First thing is obviously the product, which is a lot of the stuff that we talked about when it comes to the brand foundation, which is the value that we're providing to our ideal customer profile. That needs to be the fit, and that needs to be very valuable in terms of how it's being represented, how it's packaged, right? The second thing is acquisition, which is kind of like the traffic source or marketing for how people, but I like to use the word acquisition because the definition of acquisition is how do we get the value seen by the right people, right? You can have the most valuable product that can fit the ICP, but if you're selling if you're selling the tacos in a town where there's 20 people, right, that's your limit, right? If nobody sees a value, if you don't have the right systems to get the right people to consistently see your product, right, or the value, let's just say, right, then it doesn't matter at all, right? The best brands that are winning, right, aren't the brands that have the best product in the world. So when I see clients that prepare 1 year just on the product, and when it comes to dropping, they've done nothing for the acquisition, I'm like, why? Why are you doing this, right? You can have the most, if the brands that are winning are not the brands that have the best product, and don't mind me, I'm not saying product are not important, but how are you even meant to improve on the product if you don't have the right data and traffic to improve in the first place? What, are you gonna ask for family and friends? That's stupid, they're not your ICP, right? So I put so much emphasis on acquisition because I truly believe that is the most important aspect to actually scaling a brand, because without it, then nothing matters, right? So there's 2 acquisitions that you only really need when it comes to scaling to 10, 20, 30, 50K a month, right? There's only 2, right? And the reason why I only emphasize 2 is because if you try and touch 10, you're gonna be shit at every single one. And I just want you to master these 2 because these 2 are the only thing you need to actually get to 50K a month. Number 1 is obviously organic marketing. I love organic marketing. It's fucking slow, but it's good because you're actually building a brand, you're earning the brand, right? The second thing is meta ads, which is my personal favorite because it's a fucking cheat code. If you have the right brand foundation, if you have a good organic marketing funnel, right, and you implement paid acquisition, especially meta ads, it's like amplifying everything. I do want to make it cautious though. Meta ads and paid ads in general is an amplifier. If you have a shit brand, if you have a shit organic marketing funnel and you're posting random fucking content, ads is not going to be the solution. You need to understand to scale up brand to 50K a month in 2026, it is not just ads alone. There's so many different types of components that you need to actually scale, which people get wrong for some reason. So back to what I was saying before I ran. So we have the organic marketing, and then obviously we have the paid ads, which is meta ads, okay? So organic marketing comes down to mainly just a funnel, because you want to have a couple of things doing when it comes to organic, right? Number 1 is to build an organic community, people DMing you, commenting. You actually want to build a community that, you know, people come up to your brand, right, and they can feel related to you, because that's the exact type of customers that we want, right? Second thing is to get organic sales. I see so many people wonder, right, I'm getting views, but I'm not getting sales. The views does not matter. The question is, the fuck type of views are you getting, right? Because if you just post trendy content, meme content that gets a lot of views, that's not what's necessarily going to get the views. And I was talking to a client the other day, right? Before actually working with her, all she did was post a giveaway, right? And that's the only type of content they did, and she thought that she was going to sell out just because they was getting a lot of eyeballs, comments. Okay, the 2 strongest words in marketing is free and new. If you post a giveaway, people that are not interested in your brand, they're going to comment. But the thing is, that's good if you have other content pieces to nurture them, right? So organic isn't just about trying to get eyeballs and views. It's that as well, but to also post content that actually nurture, right? In terms of education, VSL, building trust, product understanding, right? Product selling point, product utility content to actually nurture your customers, right? In a week-to-week basis for them to eventually convert, because someone that sees an ad or someone that sees a reel is not going to buy instantly. They're going to follow you. They might like this, do this, and next week they may buy, right? Who knows, right? So that's the gist of organic marketing, and that needs to be super consistent, which comes back to building an actual content pipeline, because without building an actual content pipeline, how can you ever be consistent? But it is so important to understand the framework. I'm not going to go too much in depth between top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel content, because I have a whole video and SOP for you guys for completely free anyways up in this channel. If you want the SOP and video, just shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm more than happy to send it over to you. Now, the second thing that you need when it comes to traffic is paid ads, meta ads. Okay, there's a couple of things that I see people get wrong. People think boosting posts is the same thing, and that's as meta ads. No, the difference is you're able to get the whole KPI dashboard when it comes to meta ads. If you have the whole KPI dashboard, what can you do? You can make the right decision, but to make the right decision by reading the KPI, you need to even understand what KPIs are, what to look for. So for you guys as well, scaling to 50K a month, boosting posts is not the way, right? You need to run meta ads because of the KPI component. And running meta ads isn't just about you just putting it on a CBO and just slapping a bunch of photos and running it. No, you need actual structure, systems, or I always like to say that's gambling. Because the thing is, if you spend $30 a day or $100 a day or whatever amount of dollars and you put into ads and hoping to get sales and you don't know any idea what's going to happen or how to test it or how to control it, how are we ever going to, what is the difference between that and gambling? There's fucking not, right? And ads, I don't want to gamble on a business that you want to do full time, right? So before you even think about running ads, there's a couple components that you really need to think about. Number one is obviously campaign structure, right? Campaign structure isn't just about you going CB or ABO. No, it needs to match your brand, right? In between the type of products that you have, the type of niche, the type of budget, the type of content volume, the content diversification. The second thing is you want to build a testing structure, right? And yes, campaign structure and testing structure are two different things. Campaign is a silhouette. Testing is identifying what we're actually testing, right? There's a lot of things that you could test between the price, the URL in terms of destination, right? The angles, the formats, right? And there's so many things that you need to test, and you need to pick a couple test variables, because without that objective, well, what are we actually doing? The third thing is you need to understand KPIs to what to look for to identify if the ad is good, because not always, if you're not getting sales, that doesn't quite frankly mean the ads are going to do bad, because if sales are the only KPIs that you're specifically analyzing, then good luck with running ads, because sometimes ads takes a bit longer to actually get to the result and profitability that you want, but we don't want to kill it just because the secondary KPI is good. So you need to understand KPIs. Fourth is you need to understand your whole scaling procedure, understanding when to scale, when to vertically scale, horizontally scale, pause an ad set, kill an ad set, expand an ad set or a campaign between it, right? Because understanding that is how you build layers. When you're scaling to 10K a month, 20K a month, 50K a month, it's not about you spending 20K a month in ad budget straight away. It's like a snowball compounding effect, right? You start with $20 a day, you move to 40, 50, 80, 100, and it compounds over time. So eventually, once you spend 10K a month, then you get a 5 times return of ad spend. That's 50K a month. Simple as that, right? The fifth thing you need to do is you need to understand your KPI company baselines in terms of your target return of ad spend, your ideal cost per acquisition, the target return of ad spend every single step of the way. So before we even look at the KPIs, we know exactly the type of numbers that we need to look for, right? Again, there's a lot to do with ads. Shoot me a question if you have anything, but these are the core components that you need to understand and implement when it comes to ad acquisition to even have a chance of scaling. Now, I broke down the 3 main pillars for you guys, which is crucial to scaling your brand 50K a month step by step. So number one, understanding brand foundation, building a content pipeline, and third is emphasizing and focusing on an acquisition channel, right? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'll leave the link in my bio, okay? If you need help scaling your brand and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? Happy to book in a call. You'll be speaking with me directly, not any of my team members, okay? And I always say at the end of the video, right? If you took some value, I hope you took some value out of this video, because without it, you probably just wasted 30 minutes of your time, right? I appreciate you guys like always.